'Tis the season of landscaping, so the leaf blowers and lawnmowers are going crazy outside again. This could be fun. Alright, anyways, hey guys, welcome back to another video. So just under 2 years ago, I made a video on champions that I believe were in desperate need of a rework, and since then, 2 of the 5 that I chose got their wish, Aurelion Sol and Tahm Kench. No such luck for Illaoi, Yorick, and Malphite yet, but seeing as it's been a long time, I thought, why not? Let's make a part 2 of this video. We just got off a few small and large scale reworks in 2023 so far. Jax got a minor touch up to his kit that made him feel a bit more skill expressive. Yumi had some adjustments made to try and prevent her from being the annoying piece of that she is, and Aurelion Sol got a massive update to his gameplay that has been well received for the most part. In the foreseeable future, Skarner is on deck for the next full-scale VGU, while Ivern, Rel, and Nico are in queue for mid-scopes, so we can expect to see them later this year. Of course, the original candidates for VGUs have been on the back burner for quite some time, and it's unclear as to when they'll be redesigned. That being said, there are a few champions that are not on this list who I think should be given some attention. For today, I'll be going over another 5 champions that I believe desperately need reworks, whether a comprehensive visual gameplay update or just a mid-scope. After you're done watching this video, be sure to let me know which 5 champs you pick. And once again, just to remind you, if you hear any humming or whatever in the background, I apologize. It's spring, so everyone's doing yard work again. But just a quick moment before we go down the list, I wanted to announce that I partnered up with Z-League once again for this video. Z-League is a gaming app available on iOS and Android that helps you find teammates, compete in tournaments, track your stats, and share your best clips. Their premier feature is, of course, the tournament site. The gist is that by signing up for the free entry tournaments, you can earn coins by simply playing the game as you normally would, and these coins can be redeemed in the store for prizes ranging from gift cards to physical peripherals like headsets and controllers. A new feature they added since the last time is called LFG, which allows you to select for players to game with by looking through their profile stats. They include a ton of metrics like KDA, win rate, kills per match, and other stuff. Yes, it looks exactly like what you think it does. You can even adjust the settings to filter based on skill, region, language, whether you use a microphone or not, etc. They really stepped up the quality of features and the platform overall, so I highly recommend you check it out using my link on screen, which is also in the description below. As always, a pleasure to be working with Z-League, but let's not waste any more time and get back to some rework discussion. Anyways, first on my list is Kalista. She's someone who on paper has a marvelous design, a very dodge heavy in the fray type ADC with a near limitless skill ceiling thanks to her personal gimmick. Prior to her, most if not all marksmen were immobile machine guns who relied on their team to protect them from enemy threats. Kalista was sort of the first high mobility marksman who could do the evasion and kiting herself, and when played optimally, she had the potential to 1v9 games by way of her insane backloaded damage and dangerous advantage state. To put it simply, she was one of the best ADCs in the game when it came to fighting, especially in teamfights, and she's also very mechanically engaging, a trait that would ordinarily lead to a higher play rate. While her design is a clever one, there were a few issues that surfaced because of how it was executed. Everyone mostly arrived at the conclusion that she was too abusable in pro play thanks to her objective control, which is part of the cause for sure, but there's a greater underlying issue I think. As said earlier, she has an extremely strong advantage state, meaning if her team is on the offensive or she's in a position to safely output damage like in a front-to-back team fight, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone better. However, she's got a subpar neutral game for her class whose members are expected to have a strong neutral. With an attack range of 525 and her only real poke tool being a single target spear that doesn't really do a whole lot, Kalista doesn't really exert pressure outside of a head-on assault, at least compared to her peers. Marksmen are obviously not poke champions, but the class is ideally at its strongest when attacking without fear of being attacked, and the way Kalista plays inherently exposes her to attack, but outside of her sidesteps, she doesn't have built-in forms of protection. Comparatively, Samira and Neela have their wind wall and counter-strike abilities respectively, giving them a measure of safety when going in. Meanwhile, other marksmen like Caitlyn and Jinx have enough attack range to just walk up and shoot without having to be too concerned about immediate threat outside of an all-in. Kalista doesn't have either luxury. She has to essentially go big or go home despite lacking the right means to protect herself. You could argue that's what her ultimate is for. If she's attacked, she can pull her ult spawn towards her as a sort of get-off-me tool, but it's not immediate, and forcing her companion to be by her side at all times is not really a consistent win condition. I feel like if they gave her a bit more combat utility by replacing her sentinel with an actual defensive peel tool just like other short-range marksmen, that could do wonders for her gameplay without having to drastically change all that much. And in regards to her problem with securing objectives, I don't really think that's that big of an issue, even from a balance perspective. Her low play rate mostly stems from her playstyle being very uncomfortable, especially when judged against other quote-unquote melee ADCs. Up next is Karthus. The driving incentive behind reworking Kalista is that no one plays her, but Karthus is the opposite. He's played a fair amount, albeit now as a jungler instead of a laner. Karthus is a very old champion, and his kit retains that design philosophy they had back in the day. He's all about damage, nothing but pure, unadulterated damage. Most of his abilities are about dealing damage, and the supportive abilities he has are also meant to increase his damage. Even his death passive is designed to force as much DPS out of the champion as humanly possible. Credit where credit is due, Karthus is not the most annoying to deal with out there. I would sooner fight him than a Viego or Belveth, mostly because he has a healthier spread of pros and cons, but even though in practice he's not that obnoxious, it's the way he plays that warrants a bit of a touch-up. Performing well on him requires making full use of his passive whenever necessary, and I'm not a fan of that. Reviving death passives like Zac and Anivia generally don't encourage inting as they're used as a last resort, not so much an element of combat. Karthus' passive on the other hand gives the player a legitimate motivation to not be concerned for their own life as he gets a full 7 seconds to free fire while in this state. There's a whole slew of things wrong with this concept. Contrary to popular belief, dying in League is never a good thing. You often hear players talk about how their death was quote-unquote worth it if it resulted in more kills on the enemy team. Technically that's true, but only because the enemy team suffered the greater evil. The 2 for 1, 3 for 1 is worth it, but the ideal outcome would be a 2 for 0 or 3 for 0. Not saying you should avoid worthwhile trades, it's inevitable, but in the case of Karthus, the champion has a tendency to make players think dying doesn't have any negative consequences and will proceed to die 15 times in a game, but then flex how much damage they did in post-game lobby. There are times when Karthus is at his strongest when dead, I'm fully aware of that, but it's not really a healthy mechanic purely due to the sort of mindset it fosters. It also goes against the nature of pressure in this game. If a champion dies, their pressure should be completely gone. That's the reward for killing them. The fact that you can make a crucial pick on the enemy Karthus jungler only for him to press ultimate right after and nuke half your HP defeats the purpose of going after him in the first place. Requiem in and of itself is just a horribly designed ability as well, but I already complained about that in previous videos. The weird thing about Karthus is that the character is a reference to a necromancer or lich, someone who can summon hordes of the undead or the like, yet outside of his passive, nothing about him revolves around death. I feel like a way they can rework him is to give him increased abilities or power whenever he scores a kill on the enemy team, or they can make him into a revenge killer, like if say one of his teammates dies, he can absorb their soul to get stronger temporarily. There are just plenty of better ways to depict a necromancer or lich type character. Continuing down the list, we have Nocturne. I made a Why No One Plays episode on him a few weeks back, which I highly suggest you check out after this. Now, unlike the previous two who have playstyles or aspects of their gameplay that either make them uncomfortable or unpleasant, Nocturne's design is quite intuitive and fair for the most part. He's a diver assassin who excels at sowing discord by blacking out the map, then jump scaring you with a semi-global dash before hacking you to pieces with autos. The problem with Nocturne's current design is that his abilities aren't the best at letting him do what he wants to do. If the goal is to divide and conquer or catch out an isolated target, countless other divers and assassins do that better than him. If you're looking for auto-attack DPS, you'll have a much easier time chainsawing the enemy team by playing Jax, Master Yi, or Rengar. And if you're looking for long-range dive potential, there's Vi, Warwick, Diana, Rek'Sai, so on and so forth. The part of Nocturne's kit that disables wards and obscures vision for the enemy team doesn't mesh well with the other parts of his kit. Dustbringer, Shroud of Darkness, and Unspeakable Horror are abilities you would expect to see on a duelist. Q gives him a territorial advantage. W gives him bonus attack speed and can block a crucial ability from his opponent, while E is a very long-lasting fear on a single target. When used in tandem with Paranoia, it's effective, make no mistake. But I think what they should do when they eventually give him that VGU is double down on the Paranoia part of his kit. Nocturne is meant to be the personification of a nightmare. Redesigning him to play entirely around vision in a non-stealth type format could lead to a lot of interesting reactions. For example, we can make it so more than just his ultimate obscures your vision. Maybe rework one of his abilities to cause nearsight like how Graves or Quinn does. Alternatively, they can give him a mini paranoia where he nearsights all enemies around him for a few seconds. That can also make him a more potent diver. If he goes to a gank bot lane for instance, and emits a blast of darkness that obstructs vision, the enemy ADC and support are effectively cut off from each other and can't really help each other if they're separated, despite not being CC'd or hooked or anything. That's at least how I would have him reworked. His current gameplay is functional, not saying you can't make it work as is, but I feel like his theme is underutilized and should be expanded on more. Could the idea I propose be a bit too overpowered against champs who rely on auto attacks? Maybe, but then again, he is all about darkness, so he can be a worthwhile counterpick for enemy teams that have a ton of auto attackers or be an anti-teamfight champ. Moving on though, the next champion that needs a rework is Tryndamere. I hate this guy, and not just because I'm a top laner. Tryndamere's entire existence shouldn't exist. League prides itself on skill expression and macro knowledge. To highlight this, they tried their best to eliminate any avoidable sources of RNG from the game, at least any source that can drastically influence the performance of a champion. The one exception to this is crit rate, but crit rate works a bit differently in League. Without going too in-depth on the numbers for the sake of time, if you have crit chance, the more attacks you go without landing a critical hit, the higher the chance your next auto attack will, depending on how much crit you have. This is to ensure you don't get RNG screwed and fail a 50-50 coin flip 8 times in a row. For marksmen, this is usually fine, as towards the mid to late game their DPS scales well, but why this is a problem for Tryndamere is that he gets to abuse the benefits of crit damage, a stat only meant to be accessible in the mid to late game in the early game, and not by a small margin either. He gets 40% crit rate at max fury for free, so it's very possible for him to land a crit 4 or 5 times in a row, dealing ludicrous amounts of damage for no reason other than sheer dumb luck. Another component of his existence is of course his ultimate. They were adamant about preserving his death immunity when discussing his potential VGU, but however they decide to do it needs to be done carefully. Being unkillable for 5 seconds removes virtually all agency from the enemy team, letting him attack you for free while you can't do the same to him. And before you say you can kite him or lock him down to stall at his ultimate, that is universal counterplay. Kiting or CCing a Tryndamere is no more effective than kiting out or CCing a Darius. One way I think they can balance out his ultimate is by making its effects or duration more circumstantial. If they insist on keeping his ultimate, then they should preserve his ability to use it even when CC'd. However, they should either give it the same treatment they gave to Olaf's ultimate where the initial duration is short but can be extended by auto-attacking, or have it tied to his fury where it lasts longer at higher fury but shorter at lower fury, something like that. There's also the issue of him being a literal ball of stats. Passive gives crit rate, Q gives attack damage, W lowers attack damage. The guy gets thousands of gold worth of free stuff by existing. I understand it's because all he can really do is auto attack you to death, but that's a case of him being outdated. Tryndamere's only been able to stay relevant in the modern age after pumping him full of stats, and for the fact that he becomes invincible for a long time at the press of a button. Unless your name is Malphite or Nasus, fighting Tryndamere is just not a pleasant experience whatsoever. Finally, my last champion that I think deserves a rework is Choga. Fun fact, he was my very first champion. I played him when I was leveling up my first account all the way back when I started, so he has a special place in my heart. That doesn't absolve him from criticism though. Choga is a mess. All of his abilities function in their own capacity that just so happen to accidentally work well together. Let me explain. Tanks usually have a cohesive and intuitive combo that serves as the bulk of their engage. For example, Alistar's combo is WQ, then follow up with the knee stun. Zack's combo is E, then W somewhere in between, then Q before using ultimate. Ornn's combo is Q, then either W or E before using E or W. They're interchangeable. Choga doesn't really have a proper combo. You could say it's Q, then W, then E, but the abilities themselves are mutually exclusive. They don't play off each other. Passive is sustain, Q is a knockup that slows and deals damage, W is damage that silences, E is an empowered auto attack, and Feast is just damage. Honestly, I feel like Choga is more of a juggernaut than a tank. He's not a bad champion per se, doesn't have a frustrating gimmick like Tryndamere or Karthus, but like Nocturne, he's a remnant of a past generation of champions. Over the years, they've added a few things here or there, like how they made the damage on Vorpal Spike scale with the number of stacks of his ultimate, but he's kind of a big ball of stats and crowd control. Granted, Rupture and Feral Scream are incredibly powerful abilities. Name one other champion with a ranged AoE knockup on a 6-second cooldown. There probably isn't one. Silence is also a criminally underrated status effect, and it's tied to an ability with a massive area. Cho'Gath's abilities are individually broken, but there's no proper internal synergy between them. Am I saying a champion needs to have a bread and butter combo rotation to be well designed? Not necessarily, but it's shown that champions with combos and rotations are more satisfying to play than champs with a bunch of one-offs, even if those one-offs are powerful. It's hard to know when to do what on Cho'Gath, and towards the mid to late game his entire win condition devolves into making a beeline for a low health target and eating them. It's funny but doesn't make for a satisfying experience. I think they should rework him the same way I proposed for Nocturne, either double down on the Feast HP stacking mechanic or make him an area control juggernaut using his crowd control abilities. Alrighty, that's my list for today. I definitely plan to make a part 3 since I still have a few other champions I want to go over, but as a reminder, be sure to share your list of champs that need reworks in the comments down below. Aside from that, if you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could leave a like and subscribe. Consider following me on Twitter at Vars, joining my Discord server, and why not check out my failed reworks video if you haven't yet. But for now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next one. Take care.